Welcome back to the most listened to independent radio show in Europe. It's your Richie Allen Show.
Right, straight to it then. Alison Chabloz, a friend of ours. She's a satirist, a musician and a comedian whom was found guilty last month of broadcasting anti-Semitic songs on YouTube. It was a farcical judgment. Alison's songs and her writings often reflect the writings and the opinions of people like Norman Finkelstein and others who talk about the Holocaust industry. She describes herself as a revisionist. Nobody could convince me, a journalist and a broadcaster of over 20 years, that anything she ever said could conceivably be claimed to have caused anybody any harm. It's terrible. That verdict was a disgrace and an affront to justice in this country. And I'm not, over-egging that. It's disastrous. Mark Windows, my friend and colleague, is going to stay with me and join in. Let's welcome back Alison to the programme. Alison, welcome back. How are you?
Hello, Richie. Hi to all the listeners. Hi, Mark Windows. I'm all right, thanks. Surviving.
Surviving, yeah. Starting with the puns early. You've got an amazing sense of humour because it's obviously a big deal, and it's going to be a big deal and a big day tomorrow. What do you expect to happen tomorrow at sentencing?
Oh, who knows? Who knows? It was rather like the guilty verdict. Lots of people were saying, "Oh, you're not going to be found guilty. I'm sure you're not going to be found guilty." Whereas others were saying, "I think you will be found guilty at least on one charge." Well, I was found guilty on 3 charges, all 3 songs. The judge couldn't find me guilty on only one song. We'll see what happens with the appeal. I'm not going to make any official announcement until tomorrow, or I think the day after is the latest day. We'll see what my barrister says tomorrow, but who knows? I just got a nice article from Mike Walsh, and he says, well, it's all been planned in advance anyway. There's everything, the verdict, the sentence, it's all been planned in advance because that's the way that the justice system rolls in our
country.
So-called free liberal democracy.
Now, just before Mark comes in, so I want Mark to come in on this because he's followed the case, and Mark knows all about you, of course. He's going to come in a second, but just before he does, what options are open to the judge as far as you're aware in terms of sentencing? What can they do?
The maximum sentence is 6 months imprisonment or an unlimited fine.
An unlimited fine?
Which I won't, obviously my persecutors have done everything they could to stop me earning a living. So I haven't got any money, so, well, they can whistle in with a fine. So maybe some kind of community service, that's also on the agenda. Whether or not I'll get prison, there was a recent sentencing for section 127, and that was a pensioner. He was sentenced last week. He'd sent 6 letters. He'd sent 6 letters to MPs, including David Lammy and Nicky Morgan, I think, quite threatening letters to these MPs, and he was given a suspended 9-week prison sentence for a year, plus costs, plus 25 days community service. So that's, I would say that's under this law. What this gentleman did, he sent 6 letters, so he was found guilty on 6 counts. He pleaded guilty. In fact, he changed his plea and pleaded guilty. So no evidence was given against him in court by the witnesses, these MPs. But these letters were sent to individuals, and my songs were not. My songs were uploaded to YouTube and sent to no individuals. In fact, my original plaintiff, Gideon Falter of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, he shared my original video of survivors on his website.
Begging the question, why wasn't he charged with sharing?
Well, technically,
hateful information. Mark, do you want to come in on this? Because I know you've got a lot to say on this, Mark.
Well, I just found, if we leave even the content aside and that whole issue, there's something I don't quite understand about the process, because Alison was convicted on, I believe, of 2 counts of sending an offensive, indecent, or menacing message through a public communications network. Now, I don't see how the Malicious Communications Act or any act can cover uploading something to a third party. This is why I find it very, very confusing. And if you upload something to YouTube, then it's YouTube who should be responsible for what you're uploading, because they're creating the platform. So in actual fact, I don't understand how Alison sent this to anybody. That's my kind of main point here at the beginning. Can you explain to us, Alison, why that happened? Because this is something I don't understand, how this has been kind of put this way.
Yeah, in fact, I was found guilty on 2 counts of causing to be sent. And that was because it was 2 songs from my London Forum performance of 2016 that I'd shared this video on my blog. So I hadn't actually uploaded the video. So they used the act, so sending or causing to be sent. So each of those 2 songs had alternative charges, and the judge did me on causing to be sent. And the third song, which I'd uploaded last summer, that was me directly to YouTube. So they used the sending argument. So 2 counts of causing to be sent and 1 count of sending. And yeah, that's it. And it's the Public Communications Network also, Mark. I was explaining this the other day to my barrister, that the internet functions by way of a telephone operator. You need to have some kind of telephone operator to be able to access the internet. But the internet itself, now we have these lobbying groups lobbying Twitter, lobbying YouTube to ban people they don't like. And that's my case. I've not been able to get back on Twitter since my account was closed, just shortly before I was arrested, shortly before this private prosecution, which was then a private prosecution, came about. I have no voice on Twitter, and it's the same on YouTube. They've now banned all my videos. There was an article in the Evening Standard last week saying, oh, the CST, this time Community Security Trust, was moaning because YouTube hadn't taken down my videos. So now my videos have all been banned, and depending which device you're using, you can't. Some of them have got these restrictions on them, and some of them the video just pops up with a tiny little message for a fraction of a second and then disappears. That's what's happening on my phone at the moment. So it's all very odd. It's not a public communications network. If people can't get on these public platforms, which are now Twitter and YouTube, they have such a majority, such a monopoly of usage. Prisoners, inmates in prisons can use the postal service, and they can use the telephone service to phone their family, to phone their lawyers, but they can't use the internet. So saying that the internet is a public communications network, well, I think that needs arguing in the appeal as well as the sending issue. Yes, you're right. My songs were sent to a lump of silicone in a bunker in wherever YouTube's. Or to WordPress. I posted this link on my WordPress blog. They were not sent to individuals, but because my songs caused these poor little lambs, these poor little victims offense. You see, that's the thing. I deliberately chose these songs and chose the music and chose the words to cause the maximum offense possible to Jewish people, and it's just never ending. So we'll see what happens. I mean, that's just one magistrate's written verdict. He's just said, yes, I agree with the Crown. Yes, I agree with the Crown. Yes, I agree with the Crown. But he hasn't really said why.
Well, just before Mark comes back in, Mark, come back in on this. We covered a story today. You have a mayor in a suburb of Paris, in northern Paris, who, along with his council, wanted to name a little alleyway in commemoration of the Nakba, to commemorate what happened to the Palestinians after the UN illegally partitioned Palestine in 1948. And they threatened to kill him, to bomb him, to murder him. He was chased by guys in balaclavas, and then the stuff was vandalised. The plaque and the street sign was vandalised, and the Israeli powers that be working in France, the ambassador, said that this was basically terrorism what the mayor did. Just before Alison comes back, Mark, we don't really need too much more evidence that, you can say what you want about anybody or anything so long as it doesn't, ruffle the feathers of the Israelis, eh?
Well, absolutely. But there's something very disturbing that's going on in this country about all this, because a friend of mine who ran a small charity had a hostile takeover, and agents of these group who took over or attempted to ruin and take over the charity sent somebody down to a house in a remote area in this country and said that there was a price out on her head and her whole family were in danger of being killed. Now, that was reported back to the police, and they've just appear to have let that go. Now, this is serious criminality. So what I don't understand is how... I don't even want to get into the content of the songs, because the point is that the Malicious Communications Act and these acts that cover this stuff, I've had malicious text sent to my phone and nothing is ever done about it.
Yeah.
So why is it that somebody who uploads these things, these songs, which, okay, you can choose to be offended or you can choose not to be offended.
Or to ignore them.
But I don't have the right. Do we have the right to be offended when we feel like it and get some redress? Because whenever I'm offended or threatened or serious criminality has been done against me, I have no recourse.
Alison.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm offended every day. I was offended last night when I watched BBC Newsnight, and there was an article about how it's a woman's choice to not to breastfeed her children, and I just thought, well, that sounds like the food lobbying organisations wanting to sell more formula milk, doesn't it? And to stop women bonding with their babies.
Absolutely.
I thought, well, but that I found that. Oh, and they said it's a no-brainer. That's what the introduction said. It was a no-brainer that women should be allowed.
Well, that's true about the BBC, though, isn't it? The BBC is
in
a no-brainer.
General. yeah, well, exactly. And
you have to have
we're
no
talking
brain to
about,
listen to it. Yeah.
yeah. And the night before I watched, and I've sent this link to Richie before, and thanks for getting back to me, Richie. I think it's good that I'm on my last night of freedom. I'm on.
Please God not.
My last night of freedom.
Please God, it'll be a suspended sentence tomorrow at the very worst. Let's hope that's what happens, and then you can deal with it from there. But let's hope there won't be any custodial sentence. Go on.
But Mark, you were saying, there's something very worrying going on in this country. Yes, there is. And BBC Newsnight the night before, they had quite an interesting section on censorship under Stalin in the Soviet Union. And Stalin, he banned lots of music that he didn't like, not only rock and roll, but he also banned traditional Russian folk music for being un-Soviet-like. And dissidents found a way of managing to record these banned songs, and they used X-ray film. So there's this exhibition now going about. I can't remember the name of the exhibition, but you can see these X-ray medical scans with light behind them. For example, a picture of a hand, the bones of a human hand, and this has been engraved with Bill Haley's "Rock Around the Clock." And this exhibition is coming to London, but at the moment it's in Tel Aviv.
Wow.
And they also talked about a Palestinian Arab who lives in Haifa in Israel. He's a musician, and he and another man were charged with incitement for one of their songs in Israel. They were also charged, this guy, he's called Joan Safadi. He was also charged with blasphemy in Jordan and detained, but they were both acquitted in the end. And the reason that the judgment was that these artists had the right to freedom of expression. So tomorrow, will we see the British justice system imposing a harsher, more severe punishment on a dissident artist in Britain, in so-called liberal democratic Britain, than we do in the Middle East?
I'll tell you what, Mark, that's very interesting that they are more inclined to tolerate, dissent and criticism in Israel than they are here. What do you think?
Well, yes. I mean, I think it's got a bit out of control, because when you've got lobbyists who are controlling the government, both sides of it, you know, right and left, whatever that means anymore. And we've actually had examples of undercover agents saying that they will subvert the democracy of the country. Then that should be, to me, a matter of national concern. And those documentaries that came out of Al Jazeera and the Dispatches documentary, The Lobby, which caught on camera somebody who was an agent, basically, for the Israeli embassy, saying that he could subvert what was happening in the British government.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if that had been a Russian? Can you imagine?
Oh, there'd have been murders, yeah.
The outrage.
Absolutely, yeah. Mark. That's Alison. He's referring, of course, Mark, is to Shai Massad, the Israeli diplomat who bragged about getting ministers chucked out. Brilliant to bring that up, Mark. That documentary, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. We're nearly running out of time, so I'm going to do this. Mark, I'm going to give you the second last word about tomorrow, and then Alison is going to give us the final word, and then I'm going to say nothing, and we're just going to close out the programme. So, Mark, go ahead, and then we'll hand over to Alison. Go ahead, mate.
Well, it's baffling to me, the whole thing of how this has escalated. I think that Count Dunkirk case with the ridiculous thing of a dog putting its paw up in a Nazi salute and what he said underneath it paved the way for this. And I think that there's been some machinations behind the scenes with this case. That's all I can think of, really, because it's been going on for so long. And I wish Alison all the best, and I hope to see her again very soon.
Brilliant. Alison.
Thanks, Mark. And I'd like to say a big thank you, not only to Mark, to Richie, for having me on so often during this ongoing trial, but thank you to everybody who's sent me wonderful messages of support. I've been quite overwhelmed, and thank you to everybody who's helped me financially. We'll see tomorrow what happens. Yes, it's a big day, but there's plenty of other trials going on, and there's the free Tommy Robinson, all this going on at the same time. So perhaps they won't make such a fuss as for the guilty verdict, depending on what the sentence is. You know, if I do get a prison sentence, then I think there will be a lot of talk in the media. But if I don't, we'll see. But really, thanks so much to everybody. I'm not going to change my views. I'm not going to bow down and grovel. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to stop singing, despite what the Jewish Chronicle might say. Just as another point, that it was quite interesting to see Daniel Finkelstein and Oliver Kamm, both Times writers, condemning my prosecution, saying this is not the way we should be going. So it rather makes Gideon Falter look something of a lonely figure. And yes, the Al Jazeera documentary is great to bring that up. I've sang a song about that, of course, and Boris Johnson dropping his pants saying, but Israel is our friend. No, they're not. No, they might be your friend, Boris, but you're not one of us, are you, Boris? So thank you very much to everybody.
Good luck tomorrow, and we'll obviously, Mark will be reporting on it, I'll be reporting on it, the mainstream media will be reporting on it. You're great, and your sense of humour and your humility through all of it is a lesson for anybody else that might go through it in the future. Best of luck tomorrow, all fingers and toes crossed for you, Alison, I mean that. Godspeed to you tomorrow, and a big shout out to Mark Windows for coming back. To find out more about Mark speaking on Saturday with Piers Corbyn and Sandy at Glastonbury, go to windowsontheworld.net. Thanks to both of you. All the best for tomorrow. Thanks, Alison. Thanks, Mark. We'll catch up with you guys real soon. Not at all.
Thanks,
cheers,
Richie.
Alison. Bye for now. Love that lady. And Mark Windows as well. Top people. Right. We're going to close out the show then, as I said, back tomorrow at the usual time of 7 p.m. UK time. Keep all your fingers and toes crossed for Alison tomorrow as she's sentenced. It is a travesty. It's an outrage. And she's right to mention Daniel Finkelstein and Oliver Kamm in the Times. This is it's beyond sickening and evil that anybody could have a custodial sentence hanging over their head because of their opinion. No matter what that opinion might be, whether you like it or whether you don't like it, whether you agree with it or whether you don't agree with it. If people can't make satirical songs and videos and lampoon things like the Holocaust industry, written about brilliantly by Norman Finkelstein, of course, in one of the all-time great books, and if they can't do that without fear of imprisonment in what's supposed to be a free country, where a Prime Minister talks laughingly about shared values and freedoms and all of that bollocks, well, we're in a bad spot. So good luck to her tomorrow. She's a great woman. And again, windowsontheworld.net to find out more about where Mark's going to be speaking at Glastonbury in that pub right next to the festival site on Saturday the 16th, which is this Saturday. Going to leave the programme with some David Gray. Thanks again to Michael Rivero. He's brilliant. Thanks to Mark Windows and, of course, the venerable, the heroic Alison Chabloz. We'll have more on that tomorrow night at 7. Thanks to Simon for the YouTube management. Until tomorrow, bye for now.